And then we put our lines down in the water and waited for the fish to bite. Yeah, we talked about God and talked about living. There's times we would talk all night. Well, you know, if you didn't have time to go, he'd tell you it would be a sin. But how I love go fishing with Grandpa Ben.
Howdy, howdy, everybody. Cable Smith welcoming you to a very special Cabela's Corner Fishing Report. The 2014 Bassmaster Classic coming up this weekend. Alabama's Lake Guntersville. I figured we'd get an insider's perspective on what to expect at the 2014 Bassmaster Classic. So we'll check in with our longtime friend and favorite Elite Series pro, Kelly Jordan. Kelly did not qualify for the Classic this year, but he does have 9 Bassmaster Classic appearances to his credit. He also won an Elite Series event on Lake Guntersville back in 2002. So he knows the lake very well. Kelly, I know you're on the road, but we certainly appreciate you taking some time to visit with us.
Just always travel this time of year. It's go here, go there. You know, I got my new water truck yesterday, and I picked up my new boat a while back, and just everything getting ready for the upcoming season. You know, you just hope you're all ready when the first event kicks off.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And you know, we've had this warming trend over the past week or so after a pretty cold and inconsistent winter, but overall a pretty cold one. You know, we've had this trend that's warming things up all over the southern United States, including on Lake Guntersville, which is where you're headed for the Classic. So how do you think that's going to affect the fishing for this year's Bassmaster Classic?
Well, it's going to affect it, you know, quite a bit. Of course, you know, we'll all know a lot better on Sunday afternoon when the champion is crowned, whether or not they played, how the weather moved the fish. You know, they had several days of practice at the end of last week, and that was still in the deep freeze. There was snow on the ground when those guys were practicing, and then here we come this week. They're experiencing just about as warm temperatures in Guntersville, Alabama, as we are here in Texas. Maybe not quite as warm, but you know, highs in the 70s, and you know, the big key for looking at the water really warming up is looking at those overnight lows. And when the lows don't drop below 50, and it looks like they might even hover around 60 for the low, I mean, that's just going to help that water warm right up quick. And I think it's a little bit more cloudy than some of the guys would like. And if you had the sun out, too, during the days, it's been kind of cloudy, that would even cause a more drastic warming. But either way, it's going to warm up the water a lot. And I spoke with Gary Klein last night. He's, you know, he's in the Classic. I get to talk to all my buddies that made it since I missed it this year, so I didn't vicariously through him. But he had some pretty insightful comments. They have their last official practice day today, and today is Wednesday. They'll start the tournament on Friday, the Classic on Friday. He told me last night he expects there to be a tremendous amount of. He said, you know, it ought to fish almost completely differently in the Classic, because they still have 2 more days after today. Well, a night of today, you know, after today, for it to warm up even more. So, you know, it's throwing them a curveball, which is great for a championship event.
Okay, so what style of angler do you think is going to fare pretty well? You know, a fast-paced, you know, run-and-gun guy, or more of a slow, methodical fisherman? I mean, you've fished Guntersville. You've fished Guntersville many times throughout your career. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I love Lake Guntersville. I've actually won a Bassmaster tournament there, and so it's a special place for everybody, I think. And you know, the guys, you know, you can't. I mean, Kevin Van Dam has got to be your favorite pick, because Kevin Van Dam has also won there. He also won a Classic in Alabama. That was also based out of Birmingham, Alabama, on a lipless crankbait, same time of year on Lay Lake, what was that, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
You know, and the lipless crankbait is going to be, you know, probably the most thrown thing I would think of anybody. That's probably the highest percentage cold water, you know, pre-spawn type of, you know, time of year, reaction strike, catches really big ones, and you can cover a lot of water. There's a lot of different techniques that may come into play. You talked about moving fast or being slow and methodical. I think that's going to be dictated by the fish, and I think whoever's the champion very likely is going to have to incorporate both those. They're going to have to know when to slow down, which that might be in the morning, and then in the afternoon it might be guns blazing, or it might be just the opposite. Who knows? But there's a couple things that are going on. The water's warming up. That could cause a lot of fish to move and become really active. Now, you hope you find those fish, but some of the guys might have found some really big fish. I know for a fact Gary Klein told me he did. He thinks 29 pounds a day or almost 30 pounds a day might win the Classic. He said it might take that much. If you found those kind of fish, like he apparently has, he's hoping those fish don't move. He's thinking they might, or they'll change. So that's the one, too. You got to think, it's kind of like when, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but Kevin Van Dam, when he won the Classic in New Orleans a couple years ago. It was brutally, brutally, brutally cold. And everybody was making a long run to finish because that was really a stable deal. But right before the tournament started, the Classic started, we had a tremendous warm-up. And Kevin won that Classic, and almost everybody else that did any good at all was fishing right there close to the takeoff in an area where I talked to all those guys in their practice. They didn't even have a bite, or they had one bite in practice, and they go on to win the tournament there because of that warming trend, and the fish just loaded in there and blew up. So, I don't think it's going to be as extreme of a migration like that at Guntersville, but that ought to come into play. And then, a guy, if they found a big group of big fish, while it was still really cold, I know those guys are going to be hoping those fish have stayed home and haven't gone to the warm-up or haven't changed too much so they can reconnect them. So, it's going to be it's going to be an awesome, awesome tournament. And my friend Gary Klein told me last night, he said, this is going to be a great Classic by the way it's going to lay out. He said, whoever wins this Classic, they're going to own it. And what he meant by that is they are going to earn it and they're going to catch what they're able to adjust and make happen in the tournament, because it's going to be a really dynamic tournament because of this warm-up trend. So, look out. It's going to be a great show.
Yeah, and I think, you got to look at a guy like Chris Lane. I mean, I think that's his home lake. He won the Classic just very recently. I would think he's going to do pretty well.
Yeah, and he's also riding momentum. He won the last event of the whole year, and he was having a really bad year like I did. He was not in Classic contention. He knew he had to win the last event to make the Classic, and by God, he did. And, God bless him for doing that and, pulling his bootstraps up and getting her done up there up north, which is a place I'm not very good at catching smallmouth, but he got it done, and, look out for him. He's, a Classic champion. He's won the last event of the year. You definitely got to, put Chris Lane in the mix for sure.
Okay, so obviously KVD, Chris Lane should show well. I mean, on his home lake. Maybe give us your dark horse before we let you out of here.
Well, there's a bunch of guys I'd like to pick. I think Aaron Martins is liable to do very, very well because he has had quite a bit of success on Guntersville as well. He's a technician. I'm sure he has found some loads of fish, and whether or not he can change with those fish, remains to be seen. But he has so many bridesmaid finishes in the Classic that he's like, and it really sounds bad, but he is almost a sentimental favorite. It's like, come on, Aaron, win one. And but he's got to be right there in the mix. A guy like Gary Klein, this is his 30th Classic.
Yeah.
And he's never won one. He owns the record for the most Classic qualifications and not having won one. So, he's got to be in the mix too. And then you got to think of a guy that's a bobber and a weaver too, a guy like Terry Scroggins. I like Terry. He never sits still for more than 2 seconds. And I know that he got around some fish in practice. Once again, it remains to be seen if they'll be there or they're going to move. But, there's a lot of threats. There's a lot of home Alabama guys that are going to be threats as well. But the way this tournament is shaping up, this warm-up trend, and the fish are going to move, that kind of really cancels the local advantage because everything ought to be pretty fresh in the Classics. That just, that makes it just go in and, guns blazing and, whoever can make it happen. It's going to be great, like I said.
Awesome. Well, hey man, we hope you have a great time out there and on Lake Guntersville. I know you'll be at the expo. Got a lot of sponsorship appearances and duties that you're going to be taking care of.
Yeah, I'm not going to be having that great a time because I'm not going to be fishing. So, but I will be having a great time being at the expo and meeting a lot of fishing fans and talking fishing. You know, it's always great. And then, you know, I'm a fan of the sport of bass fishing. I love those tournaments. I mean, even though I'm not in, it's going to be painful to watch. It's still going to be real exciting to see how, you know, my friends do, and you know, in the events, and just see who puts it all together. You know, I mean, there's college guys, there's open guys, there's federation guys, there's tour guys. I mean, there's just all kind of guys in there, and you know, we're gonna see who steps it up and gets it done. It's gonna be, can't wait.
All right, brother. Well, hey, we certainly hope that 2014 is a great season for you. We'll be pulling for you, and we always appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thanks, Cable. Always great to be here.
All right, take care, buddy.
All right, see you, Cable.